So in this video, we're going to answer the question, how do you tell the difference between a federal student loan and a private student loan? So stay tuned, bankruptcy bailout buddies. Welcome, debtors and borrowers, to Bankruptcy Bailout, because debt ruins lives, not bankruptcy. My name is Matt Burkus. I'm a Colorado bankruptcy and student loan relief attorney based in Denver, Colorado. Today we're talking about student loans, and specifically we're going to answer the question of whether or how to tell the difference between a federal student loan and a private student loan. Because when I'm doing consultations regarding student loans, I'm always surprised to learn that the person I'm talking to, the borrower, doesn't really know if they have a federal student loan or a private student loan. And it's important to know that because the options for dealing with those loans are vastly different. However, on the big picture reality check for a moment is most likely, odds are, you will have federal student loans, because federal student loans make up the bulk of student loan lending. Of the outstanding roughly $1.7 trillion of student loan debt, about 1.3 to 1.4 trillion is federal student loans. And federal student loans are what you're going to be offered first, especially for most traditional schools. So if you went to any sort of traditional college, university, graduate program, or anything like that, you're going to have a basket of federal student loans that you're going to get first, and then you only resort to private student loans to make up the difference. Now, if you went to for-profit colleges, trade schools, or educational camps, that sort of thing, you may only have had private student loans for those schools. But in any event, so odds are, going into this, realize you most likely have federal student loans, because that's the most common type of federal student loans. But if you don't know the difference or can't tell if you have the difference, I'm going to walk you through how you can tell the difference. And there's basically three, or I should say 3.5 ways to figure out on your own what type of student loan that you have, either federal or private. So the first is looking at the loan type. So somewhere on your statement or when you log into your account, there's going to be a way to figure out, well, what kind of loan type that you have. And so I'm going to go through some of the key loan types that are federal student loans. And so if you see any of these in your account, then you know you have federal student loans. So you'll see loan types like direct subsidized, direct unsubsidized, direct consolidated loans, direct plus loans. If you have some older loans, it might also reference them as Stafford subsidized loans, Stafford unsubsidized loans, graduate plus loans, parent plus loans, Perkins loans. And if you have older student loans that predate 2010 or before, those are typically designated as FFELP loans. Or so it may say FFELP consolidated loan, FFELP subsidized, FFELP unsubsidized. FFELP just stands for the Federal Family Education Loan Program. And that's basically the older student loan program that predates the direct loan program that exists now. All right, so if you have any of those loan types, and I'll list this in the description, and there's plenty of places where you can track this down as well, then those are federal student loans, and then you can use a process of elimination to say, okay, if those are my federal student loans, if you have anything else, odds are those are going to be private student loans. The second way to figure out if you have, to determine whether your loans are federal or private, is to basically who's servicing the loan. Now, this is imperfect, but it's a starting point, because only certain servicers are allowed to handle federal student loans. And so I'll go through a list here. Some of these are getting out of the business of servicing federal student loans, but I'll go through some of the bigger names. And there's not that many, actually. There's only like 8 that do this. So FedLoan Servicing, although they're getting out of the picture. Great Lakes Educational Loan Services. EDFinancial or EDFinancial. MOHELA, that's a big one, MOHELA. AidVantage, that's a newer one. That's the one that's taking over for Navient. And then, of course, Navient, but they're getting out of the federal student loan business. But they're going, as far as I know, right now, they're still retaining their private student loan portfolio. Some of the newer ones, Maximus Federal is taking over a lot of loans. Trellis Company, Cann and Associates, that's Cann and Associates. Then there's NelNet, another big one. A lot of federal student loans serviced by NelNet. OSLA Servicing, ECSI, and then Default Resolution Group. Default Resolution Group primarily services student loans in default. Okay, so now if you have student loans that aren't serviced by any of those, then those loans are private student loans. So the ones not serviced by those agencies that I just listed off are going to be private student loans. So this could be Discover Bank, SoFi. There's a whole laundry list of people getting into, or of lenders and businesses getting into the private student loan industry. So if you have something through any of these other banks, and Discover is a big one. Wells Fargo used to do it a lot. I don't think they do it as much anymore, but they all had private student loan portfolio arms where they lent money. And of course, now the third way, I think the easiest way to figure this out is to log into studentaid.gov. That's one word, studentaid.gov. Set up or register your account with them. And that's the official Department of Education website. And it will give you an inventory of all your federal student loans. So again, you can use a process of elimination. So once you get the inventory of your federal student loans, then you just cross-reference it to the loans you know that you have. And there you go. You've got your federal student loans, and then you can see what your private student loans are. So studentaid.gov, again, official Department of Education website. That is a government website, and it'll give you all the student loans you ever had. Okay, so that's the best way to do it. And of course, the way number 3.5 is, well, just call your servicer and ask what type of loan that you have. They will just tell you whether it's a federal or private student loan. And when I'm doing these consultations, now there's other things I can key off of that inform me whether the loans are federal or private if the person doesn't already know, because obviously I'm talking to them. They don't have time to go look this stuff up. So the other ways I figure it out is I'll ask them about, forbearances, deferments. I'll ask about loan type, what type of payment plan that they're on, because if they reference any sort of income-driven repayment program, like income-based repayment, income contingent payment, pay-as-you-earn, those are all federal programs. If the loans have been in forbearance or deferment for a really long time, that tells me we're most likely dealing with federal student loans, because private student loans don't really go into deferment or forbearance for a very long time as well. So again, there's other ways to sort of get back into whether you have federal or private student loans. But from your perspective, these three ways are the easiest ways. And the easiest one is studentaid.gov. And that'll give you your inventory of federal student loans, and then you can figure out the rest from there. But odds are you're going to have federal student loans, because most people do, and it makes up roughly 80% of the total federal student loan portfolio, or total student loan debt out there. So you probably have federal student loans, and then a much smaller percentage of you will have private student loans. So I hope this video has helped you and given you some useful information to figure out what type of loans that you have. I offer initial consultations to student loan borrowers around the country. Those consultations cost $169, but we help figure out whatever is your issue or question. I can walk you through and help you figure out what your issue is, what your options may be, and what we can do to help depending on what it is. But most of the time, just in the consultation, I can get you pointed in the right direction. My name is Matt Burkus, Colorado bankruptcy and student loan relief attorney. Best of luck to you.